Okay, I think we're ready. Oh, again, apologize. This is new, and we are trying to do everything we can to get this. I'm going to turn this off so we can see Simone. There we go. Okay, well, welcome. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Again, I apologize for the lateness of our start. We're just trying to get everything organized with this new webinar. We'll be better next month, so we'll have everything together. My name is Nicole Bedford, and I think I know everybody that's on here. If everybody just do a quick introduction, I know just in case some people weren't there in December, if everybody could just do a quick introduction and then we can get started. I'll just go off of my camera, and Joseph, since you're right there on the left to me, I'll have you introduce yourself. Dr. or Simone. Well, I'm going to wait for you for the staff. I'll wait. Dr. Lopez.
Buenos dias, familia. My name is Nancy Lopez. I'm professor of sociology at the University of New Mexico, director of the Institute for the Study of Race and Social Justice, associate VP for Equity and Inclusion, and happy to be here this morning. And I'm going to put an invite in the chat to our next meeting of the Institute on Tuesday at noon via Zoom.
Great. Chaslyn.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chaslyn Wins. I am with the Office of African American Affairs. So happy to be here.
Monique.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monique Matute Chavarria. I'm an assistant professor at New Mexico State University in the College of Health, Education, and Social Transformation.
Patricia.
Good morning, I'm Patricia Trujillo, and I'm the Deputy Secretary of Higher Education. A little bit beat down after the legislative session, but we're happy because we got free college for New Mexico. So we're really excited to make that announcement.
That's awesome. Stephanie.
Hello, I'm Dr. Stephanie Mack, A+ Class Act Consulting, certified in Texas and New Mexico, and I'm pleased to be here today.
Hakeem.
Good morning, everybody, from sunny Phoenix. I'm transporting my teenager to a soccer tournament, but my name's Hakeem Bellamy, normally in Albuquerque. Just recently stepped down from a 4-year appointment as the Deputy Director for the Department of Arts and Culture for the City of Albuquerque, and excited to see what's next for me and this council.
Wow, they'll miss you, Hakeem, they will. Romulus.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, typically I'd be able to make the meeting in Rio Rancho. However, I'm currently in Kansas City, but my name is Romulus Charles. I am with the Native American Community Academy. They're in Albuquerque, and I'm excited to be on the council.
And Cheryl, I don't know, you're over. Oh, he's got to take off his background. And then we have Dr. Means. He has to take off his background.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Cheryl Felicia Means. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of New Mexico, and I am the secretary for the Black Education Advisory Council.
Great. And then I don't know, did I miss anybody else? Arlen is not on. Yeah, I didn't see him either. Okay. And so the two chairs are not here, so I'll take over. And I just need to bring up, because I had my own agenda for the staff and the staff report. I thought Arlen would be here today to lead the meeting for the chair, but I'll go ahead and do that. I'll do a staff report since I'm already on here. And then what I'll do is just get feedback. I know we're going to talk about, I think we did the rules or the means. Let me see, I guess he's not. And so we'll just go through the agenda. I'll give the staff report. It's really, we can make this as informal but formal as a meeting that we can. I know we didn't meet in January. There's a lot that we have done as far as the staff. And so I wanted to introduce, what I'll do first is introduce the two new staff members. We have Devin Williams and we have Simone Van. And so I'll let them talk a little bit about themselves and what role they are playing with the Black Education Act. Since I'm already on mic, I'll just do you, Simone.
Sure, no problem. Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Simone Van. I am new to Public Education Department. I'm the new Black Education Curriculum Coordinator. There's a few things that are my focus. First, I want to make sure that teachers have available culturally relevant material that's easy to access and that is relevant and accurate. I also will focus on making sure current curricula is anti-racist and anti-oppressive. And so within the staff, within PED, we also help to educate and celebrate Black History Month. And so some of you, if you're on social media with the Public Education Department, you might have seen some of the new facts that are coming out, just interesting facts about African Americans in New Mexico. So that is my focus and that's what I do. Good to meet everyone.
Devin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Devin Williams. I'm also new to the PED Black Education Act team. I am in charge of the Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression Hotline as the hotline manager. And basically what my duties entail are essentially facilitating the hotline, working with the team to make sure that the hotline has proper outreach. And then again, doing everything that we can in order to support and advocate for students whenever it's school-based incidents, as well as the families and community members who are also looped into those different incidents. And so specifically with the hotline, just to give a little bit of background, it deals with racial incidents, unfair treatment, and injustice. And then again, it's school-based incidents, and our scope reaches within the K through 12 as well as higher education. And basically, whenever it comes to an incident that's reported, whether it be a student, a family member, community member, or administrator to report the incident on the student's behalf, we work as advocacy partners with the hotline in order to bridge the gaps, communication gaps between the student, family, community member, whatever stakeholder to the school. And so whether it be reaching out to the principal or superintendent, we work to make sure that the schools are doing what is outlined in their policy in order to address racism, unfair treatment, or injustice. Pleasure to meet you all.
Great, thank you, Devin. Arlen just walked in, so I'm gonna let him get set up. What I'll do right now is just review the agenda items. And so we did the roll call. What we'll do is we'll do approval of the previous meeting minutes. Cheryl, if you don't mind, or I'll let you go over that one for the meeting minutes. We'll give the staff updates. We'll review the consensus model. Then we'll have a little break, review of the online meeting etiquette, a review of shared Google Drive, and then we'll do the committee reports. And then any announcements that we have, and then our next meeting would be March 19th. And so what I'm gonna do is turn it over to Cheryl and let her go over the meeting minutes.
All right. Hello, everyone. So our last meeting was held on December, our first meeting actually was held on December 4th, 2021. And during that meeting, we established some counselor leadership. We have our chair, Arlen, one of our co-chairs, Arlen Nelson. Our second co-chair is Dr. Boyd, Alexander Boyd. Secretaries are myself and Dr. Mack. And our treasurer is Hakeem Bellamy. We also established our leadership and our subgroups. So some of the subgroups that you'll be hearing from today are from Data and Policy, Dr. Nancy Lopez, Dr. Patricia Trujillo, and Hakeem Bellamy. Then there's curriculum. You'll be hearing from Joseph Ulibari. Professional development, also Joseph, family and community engagement, Monique Chavarria, Robert Sims, who's not present, Patricia Grovey Evans, and then we'll also be hearing about the community hotline response. There were a lot of decisions that were made in the last meeting as well about our voting model. And so we will be working through this meeting with using consensus, as demonstrated by thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs to the side, with discussion. And beyond that, the majority of the rest of our meeting time was spent voting on how frequently we will meet and how our subcommittees will meet and be governed. And so for today's meeting, we will have those reviews and move forward. There's just a lot of preliminary kind of setup because it was the first meeting.
Can I have a motion or a consensus adopting the minute meetings? If we can just give a thumbs up. Is there any thumbs down for meeting minutes adoption? This is, and I think you have the reactions too. That's what we may have to. Yeah. So we may have to reuse the reactions on if you're on Zoom to use the reactions. Okay, Dr. Stephanie's thumbs up. And there is no opposition for the, okay. All right, we're good, Dan. And I don't know if Arlen is in yet. Okay. So what I'll do is go into the staff updates. We've done a lot since our last meeting. And what I'll do is Devin already introduced himself with the hotline. The hotline is up and running. If you have any questions, we have the QR code, we have the 1-800 number, we have an email, but I'll let Devin give a little bit more information on the hotline and where we are, how he's taking the calls, give an update on the calls that we're receiving, how those calls are being addressed with the schools, but I'll turn it over to you, Devin.
Thank you, Nicole. And yes, just again, when it comes to the hotline, it deals with racial incidents, unfair treatment, and injustice. We look at school-based incidents in K through 12, as well as in higher education. And not only is it bridging the gap between stakeholders who either are the student or advocate on behalf of the student in the school systems, but also bridge the gap between those stakeholders in the public education department. And so in order to make sure that we're doing everything we can For advocacy, our team has been touching base with different partners within the public education department in order to make sure that they're looped in and we have a uniform front when it comes to that support and advocacy. So some of the people that we reached out to are the charter schools, special education, safe and healthy schools, the Civil Rights Bureau within the agency. And so depending on the type of call that we get will depend on who we will loop in within the public education department agency. Another big thing in terms of the different incidents, people can, like Nicole said, report either with the 1833 number, either via phone call or text. People can also use email with the arao.hotline@state.nm.us email, and then people can also do an online submission. And so when it comes to the reporting, there's an online submission form, and then there's an alternative form, just so we're making sure that we get the data that we need when calls come in. Some of the data that we collect are demographic. We also are working to assign the case number, and right now we're using a makeshift system to get in calls and to make sure that we're able to log the information and pretty much accumulate the data until we get our more comprehensive system that streamlines a lot of the information that we're going to be getting in, as well as make sure that we are able to generate or automate reports from the data that we get in. And I see that Dr. Lopez has a question.
Thank you, Devin. I was wondering about the demographic data that's being collected. If, for instance, the data is collecting Hispanic origin as separate from race, because if we look at in-school suspension rooms and probably gifted classes, you're going to see very different looking Hispanics in those two spaces, meaning a lot of Black Hispanics like myself will probably be overrepresented in incidents of bias and things like that. And then also, are we collecting parental educational attainment to help us understand who specifically is being targeted?
Yeah, so in terms of the demographic data with race, we have several boxes that individuals can check whenever they are reporting an incident. On those boxes, we have Hispanic, Black or African American, we have white, we have Pacific, Asian or Pacific Islander, and then we also have Native American. And then there's the ability not only to check the one box, but multiple boxes. And so in terms of like the data that we have within PED, I am looking to get into our STAR system to be able to see that data, but I haven't had access to that yet. And so does that answer your question?
Yeah, so the idea is that when we collect Hispanic origins separate from race, we can find out who's Afro-Latino, who's a Black Latino like myself, rather than having people check multiple boxes, because then it becomes really difficult to understand who specifically is being targeted for hate crimes and things like that. And then parental educational attainment, I don't believe is being collected currently, but that's one of the things that we're working in the policy and data committee.
Okay, I definitely would love to get with you to figure out how we can incorporate that into the files that we have. Right now, in terms of the kind of education level for the students, we do have them put the grade level, but I definitely like to make sure that we are getting the right information and data for the different calls that are coming in. So at this meeting, or if there is space in this meeting, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit more about what that looks like and make sure that we're doing it in the proper way. Yes, whenever it comes to the different cases, we've gotten a variety of different calls, ranging from people within the school systems that are reporting racial incidents and injustice, as well as people that are outside. And so because it's a smaller number, some of the things that we've gotten outside were just some domestic violence that people are dealing with, or it'll be like issues within an agency that's outside of school systems. And so with those type of calls, we generally figure out who within the state that we could refer them to. Our person, Marie, who oversees the different calls that come into PED, we're able to partner with her and make sure that we get those calls, or calls that are outside the scope of what we do, to her, so they're able to be directed in the right way. And that also goes into the different other individuals within PED to make sure that calls that are outside the scope of what we do, we're still able to help and support them, and we're able to collect that data as well. In terms of calls that are specific to the school-based systems, a couple of calls that we've gotten have typically been geared towards racial incidents and bullying. And one of the calls that we got was with, and Nicole, I can't remember the name, it's the Oojoaque or Oojoaque, okay, sorry. Oojoaque Valley Middle School. And in that incident, there's a issue between the teacher targeting the student and the teacher saying racial slurs to the student in the class. And so, for example, for that type of incident, what we did is the parent reached out to us and told us about his concerns. We then followed up, make sure that we had all the information, and we took that information to the principal and superintendent within that school district to get their side of the story, to see exactly what has been done in terms of the incident. And so based off of the information we got from that, we got some initial, some context to what they're doing on their end. And one of the biggest things that we're able to get was that communication between the school and the family. From the calls that I've gotten, the biggest issue is the lack of communication, and schools have certain restrictions to the type of information that they can share. And so a lot of expectations are skewed when it comes to the information that is wanting to be shared, and the information that can be shared between the families and the schools. And when it came to this specific case, the school was able to give confirmations of the different interventions that they have for the teacher that made the calls, or that made the derogatory remarks towards the student. And based off of that, we're able to communicate with the family, let them know exactly some confirmations in terms of us reaching out to the schools, making sure that the schools are held accountable for whatever policies that they have when it comes to dealing with the teachers. And so we're able to get that case resolved. The student, they were able to get counseling, and they were able to get the support that they needed in order to feel safe in that school, in that environment. Another case that we got was where a student took a Snapchat of race, or the three people packing up a Confederate flag at one of the schools. I believe it was El Dorado. And so in that instance, we're able to reach out to the principal, let them know the issue and concern, just to make sure that there's a complete understanding of the context and there's a complete understanding of the situation. And the principal was able to handle that situation. They already addressed the students in the photos. And so That's pretty much the gist of just a couple of cases of different issues different incidents that we've oversaw. The biggest issue is, again, that communication piece to where the schools are actively communicating with the families, with the students, with the teachers. And Nicole, was there anything else that I need to add or any other thoughts on that?
The only thing that I wanted to add is that right now what we're trying to do is put together town halls for community awareness, to make them aware of the hotline, also to let the community know that we're here when we're addressing issues. I know there's been a couple of incidents just happening just the past, probably just yesterday. And then there's also an incident that's happened. It's happened in November, but it has community involvement. And so what we're trying to come across is that in order to have the Black Education Act to work is that we need to know of these incidents and to see how we can help with the support the schools as well as supporting the community. And that way we can be able to do the reporting when we have to do our reporting to the governor's office and also to the cabinet secretary. We have that data that we can put in those reports to show what incidents are happening around the state of New Mexico. And so we're putting together, starting in March, and doing town halls to show that awareness, to get the word out about the Black Education Act, also to get the word out about the hotline. And so that when incidents do happen, people know to contact our office. And so we can address these issues, we can document these issues. And so that's the big thing right now, is just really getting that community awareness, especially about the hotline, and getting that partnership with community members. And so that we can be involved in any of the incidents that's happening. Again, we can be that bridge between the community and the schools. That's our goal, is to be that bridge between parents, the schools, community, the schools, just so we can just build those positive relationships. And so that's one way also that the hotline, because we're not trying to come in and be harsh on any of the schools, be harsh on the parents. We're that bridge between the two. And so if anybody knows of in your community, in the different cities that you can help us get these town halls started, we surely appreciate it. I know we're starting in Albuquerque. We're looking at a town hall the second week in March. We're going to do the town hall in Albuquerque. We want to start with them because it's needed, because it's a bigger district, it's a bigger population, but we just really need to get the word out about the hotline and really get the community to lean on us in that support when it comes to any incidents in the schools. And I think, were you good, Devin? Is there any questions about the hotline before I move on with Simone? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Excuse me. I heard Mr. Williams say that the hotline is also available for higher ed. And I was just wondering if you could detail how the institutions have perhaps, you've reached out to the institutions, or what I would like to offer is that something that we can help with. We can work with our PIO to start getting those out on our channels and to start letting the higher ed leaders know that this is available. And then also maybe help do the corollary kinds of town hall events at the higher ed institutions, because I think it's a really important tool for students and faculty to have. And so we would just love for everybody, like you're saying, to help get the word out about it. So I can follow up with you all offline about that. And then the other thing I just want to put on people's radar, and I'll put the link in the chat, is a really wonderful resource we have at the UNM Medical Center, or medical school, pardon me. It is called the Learning Environment Office, LEO. It's run by Andrea Martinez, I believe is her name. I hope I'm not getting her name wrong. But I just went to a presentation, and the Learning Environment Office sounds pretty innocuous as a title. But when you get into what they're doing, it's really radical. It's about how do you create these support systems for addressing bias and how do I say mistreatment in classrooms. And so they come at it from both ends in regards to like having some really great, how do I say, responses to working with faculty members who get complaints lodged against them. And then also really celebrating educators who are doing the right thing, right? So you're doing the simultaneous, lifting up of who should be the exemplars and models, at the same time really deliberately working in anti-racism trainings and other types of trainings for professors who need to start addressing biases in their own classroom. And then very much like the hotline, what they have created in the medical school is essentially like this neutral third party, so that students and staff members feel more comfortable coming forward. Whereas before, how the power differentials often work in those kinds of professional spaces, people were afraid to speak up because they were afraid like, oh, this is going to impact a letter of recommendation, or, all of those weird ways that power keeps its stronghold. And so I just see a lot of parallels between these two amazing efforts. And so I just wanted to put that on people's radar, and I'll put the link in the chat.
That's great, because partnerships, that's what we're looking, or not to reinvent the wheel, but doing those partnerships. And yes, we did, and later in my, with the updates, we did do, we attended a town hall in Las Cruces at New Mexico State. And so the Black Student Union basically program was having a town hall, and they wanted to address the issues that they had about 2 years ago. And so they were trying to address the issues with the chancellor to see where they are now, how many of the topics, or how many of the complaints that they had, how many were actually addressed and were taken care of. And so right there with that town hall, they were aware of the hotline. And so, and yes, I would love to talk offline with the staff or the team, or we can do a meeting, or if you're in Santa Fe, we've been in Santa Fe on Tuesday and Wednesdays. So is to sit down with you and strategize on how to get the word out into the universities. Are there any
other? That would
other?
be wonderful. Yeah.
Great. Are there any other questions about the hotline before I move on with Simone with the curriculum? Okay, Simone.
So for the curriculum piece, there's a few things that's happening right now. First, on the Public Education Department website, we're building out a section of the website that will be for the Black Education Act. On the curriculum and instruction page specifically, there will be links for teachers, once again, to get to culturally relevant material. We're going to do it by K-5, and then 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12. So it's age appropriate. Once again, it's accurate and it's relevant. Also, by doing the social media posts that I referred to before with the Public Education Department, I talked to their humanities and literacy department, and they were surprised that a lot of the African-American facts here in New Mexico, a lot of them were unsure of. I think there was like maybe one fact that they knew about. So for that reason, we're starting to collaborate together to work on creating an African Americans in New Mexico unit for the high school level. We also want to create African American New Mexico history for primary level as well. So we will partner with different people in the community to do that, and to add that material so that teachers, once again, have it at their fingertip. We worked with someone in PED also to include the facts on the teacher to teacher newsletters. So those of you who are teachers, you might have seen our Black History newsletter that just recently came out, introducing the team, but also including those culturally relevant materials that teachers can now know, look up, and then hopefully and eventually use within their classrooms. And so it's starting with humanities and literacy, but also I will be working with the math and science, working with the arts, and working with health ed. And all of those, we're kind of going through the standards and seeing where we can add culturally relevant material to the standards specifically. I am a teacher. I just left Cleveland. I was an Algebra 2 teacher for 9 years there. And so I know for teachers, it's, we're very busy. And so it's about trying to add and have easily accessible information that doesn't add to the job, but just helps what you're already doing. So that's why our focus is to look at standards and how we can add culturally relevant facts to those standards. Eventually, down the road, this website will house all of those standards. There will be connections from the Black Education Act curriculum page to the actual curriculum and instruction pages in PED. So teachers can go from one to another and easily access the material that is relevant for the units that they're working on. So on the curriculum side, that's what we're working on, and that's what we're currently doing. Also from our Black Education page, we will have a section for Black Student Union sponsors. We're finding that a lot of schools in New Mexico, they actually don't have a safe spot for students who are at risk to go to. So we are also trying to help provide those safe spaces in schools. And we're also trying to help the sponsors by giving them culturally relevant material that they can easily access and talk about within their clubs. So that's what we're working on the curriculum side. Are there any questions at all? Yes, Dr. Nancy?
Yes, thank you so much for all that amazing work. I was wondering if there's any conversation about building capacity around ethnic studies courses at 9th grade. In other words, especially in the high schools, there's a lot of research. I'm actually part of a study that involves 2 districts in California and here that looks at the impact of these courses for empowering our students and really engaging and focusing on our communities. And so Albuquerque Public Schools passed ethnic studies as an elective for students, but we really need to think about the value of making it a requirement for graduation and introducing it in 9th grade. Because if we wait until 11th grade or 12th grade, it's a little, it's great. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but we need to make sure that that's part of the standard curriculum. So I'm wondering if there's any effort across the state to really build capacity, because it's my understanding there's very few, if any, Africana studies courses within our school district, but it's a missed opportunity to really make an impact for all of our students, but particularly our Black students.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't know who was gonna answer. So I know that you're right with the social studies standards, and I saw the link placed for another meeting to talk about those standards. They're being worked on right now, but from what I'm hearing, having an Africana studies course, it's mostly an elective. I haven't heard conversations around making it something that all students have to take.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. That's what, but it is something, I know that's on the radar. It's something that we can put forth or look at with the 60-day session that's coming up and getting it, and it's something that we can talk to Cabinet Secretary Steinhaus, because I know he's big on diversity. He's big on just really having that equity into the classrooms. And so that is a conversation that we could hold with Dr. Steinhaus and seeing what approach we can take in getting ethnic studies, especially Africana studies, into our schools. And yes, Hakeem, we can send out the newsletter and put you all on the list and I'll have Simone send everybody else the most recently sent newsletter, and then also put everybody on the list too.
Trujillo?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update from higher ed. Something that's currently on our radar is we work with the College Board, which is the organization that creates the AP tests that are rolled out in 11th and 12th grade. And they are about to have a pilot for an AP test in African American studies. So I'm going to be representing HED at a meeting that's happening now in mid-March. which is going to be a gathering of scholars from across the country to make sure to vet right what the content of that particular test is. But I just wanted to let you know that, of course, if you pass an AP test, that means that you get it's on a scale of 1 to 5. And I believe in New Mexico, if you get a 3, 4, or 5, you then get college credit. And so it's an opportunity because right now, only 3 of our universities have like an Intro to African American Studies course. And so if it's going to become an AP test, that means that all of our institutions, even if they don't currently have this course, we're trying to figure out what it means that they have to accept it, right? And so in doing that, what we're really trying to think is there an opportunity to encourage all of the 29 higher ed institutions then to find a way to teach African American studies on their campuses. That way, not just the students who have the access to the AP test, but all of their students, right, have access to that class for their gen ed requirements. So again, this is something that maybe we follow up on in a subcommittee to talk about. I'm all about, systems, like how do we make sure that we put the ethnic studies requirements into the systems that are then required of institutions to follow through on. So for instance, really thinking about gen ed, is there a place to create a requirement? And that is always a difficult conversation at institutions because gen ed keeps shrinking and people want to keep their courses in there. But there's also a really important opportunity to say like, hey, as we're having these conversations, where do we need to make additions, refresh, and make sure that people are reflected in the curriculum? And by people, of course, I mean people of color. Yeah.
That sounds good. Thank you. No, we have a lot to talk about offline, so that's awesome. Is there any other questions surrounding curriculum? I know Simone has worked very, very, very hard, as well as Devin, in getting the hotline up. Simone has really opened a lot of doors as far as the curriculum and having people think about the Black history and putting that into our schools. We're also looking at working with the community. I know we're looking at getting community involved, getting the universities involved, also in putting this in the curriculum. And so she's doing a lot of outreach. And so it's not just a single effort or just a PED effort, but also getting the community involved in what we're trying to do and getting the information put into the schools. And so I know that she'll need help on the professional and curriculum. I know Joseph and Simone would love to have more members in working with this because it's a huge task. One of our goals is to just get a New Mexico Black History book put into the schools, even if it's one for every single school. But that's one of our main goals is just getting a book put in to all of the schools that they can have on New Mexico Black History because it's a lot. There's a lot of rich history here in New Mexico. Now the most weighted thing is our Google Docs. And so Devin has kindly worked on the Google Docs, and I'll give him the update. And so we finally have it going for everybody. So we will be official, yay. And so we'll get all the documents put on there, have better communication, with the committees, and this will help a lot. So I'll turn it over to Devin.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, with the Google Drive, what I'll do is there's a folder within our BEA account. And so the advisory council account. So what I'll do after this meeting is make sure that the link gets out to everybody, and everybody should have access to each of the different subcommittee folders within the Google Drive. And then there's also going to be a space for additional materials. And so if there's like articles or references or any supplemental information that you want to add to the advisory council document, that would be the space to do that. I'll also have all the meetings on here, so you'll be able to see this meeting in the Google Drive, and I'll make sure that there's links to that, as well as once the meeting minutes are complete, you'll be able to have access to that as well. And so everything that happens within the advisory council and updates, documents, information, it'll all be housed within that Google Drive. And so are there any questions about that, what it'll look like or anything? Okay, perfect. And so
Thank you, Devin.
yeah.
So I'm gonna talk. All right, good now. All right, sorry guys, technology. All right, I'm gonna talk about the Black Education Act's visit to a few teams in or a few schools in Alamogordo and Las Cruces. So we went as a team. It was Dr. Bannerman, Nicole, Devin, and myself. And our first stop was to a middle school, Zia Middle School in Las Cruces. So we talked with the principal there. We did visits with classrooms. We got to see students, and we also toured like their cafeteria area. Like they took us through the whole school. Then we went to their high school. It was the Las Cruces High School, the new one that they have down there. There, once again, we met the principal and we toured the school once again, and we were able to see everything. We talked with their superintendent, and we actually got to meet with a class of students. It was their student government. And they were really honest in talking about a racial incident that happened to them. It was like I guess a rivalry between Mayfield and them. And it was something that happens all the time. They call it rivalry week. But this particular time, they spray painted and destroyed the school, and they were spray painting racial slurs. And so the students kind of opened up about it. You could see the trauma of the incident still within the students. And they were discussing how they were shocked by what happened, how it traumatized them in their school, how it made something that was fun for them no longer fun. And they were just telling us their process of going through it. What we were really surprised and glad to hear is the students had a lot of support from the staff. And that was kind of their safe space to heal, to talk about it, and to get through it. So that visit to the high school was eye-opening for us. It was really good. And at that school, they talked about having those safe spaces to talk through issues like this, and then safe spaces to heal, and then also safe spaces so that as students who are growing up, they can find their way, they can find their own space by having those safe spaces. So it was a really good visit to the high school. Then we, later on that day, went to NMSU, as Nicole already kind of talked about. There we were part of their BSU town hall, and there was a lot of issues within NMSU that have been going on for 2 years, and the Black Student Union there was just getting nowhere pretty much. So that was nice to be a part of. We were able to discuss the Black Education Act and what we do. We were able to introduce ourselves, but also we were able to give input to their situation to help them turn it around. And so then we went to Alamogordo, and at Alamogordo, we met their equity council. They're just starting it, so they're brand new. Once again, they took us on a tour of their high school. And so we were able to see their high school. At Alamogordo, we were really pleased to see their cafeteria because it was amazing. I am from Cleveland, and those of you that know Rio Rancho, you know, Cleveland is considered one of the higher schools. But Alamogordo's cafeteria just outdid us. They had a food truck. I mean, it was amazing. And the part that we really loved is that everything was free. The students could buy any choice they wanted. No one had to take a cold lunch because they couldn't afford something else. No one had to see this person always getting Dion's because they could afford to pay for it, but they couldn't. Everything was free and it was amazing. Their pizza was made on site. Everything was fresh. I mean, it was just a really amazing thing to see what they were able to do. And the fact that they thought about equity for all and access to all was amazing to us. In Alamogordo, we discussed having those safe spaces once again. They did not have a BSU. They did not have an area for students with disabilities. They did have something called a gay straight alliance, but that was the only type of club that they really had for at-risk students. And so from our visit, we were able to, just this past week, talk with their equity team again. And they are starting those clubs. They're starting the planning process this year. And next year, they're gonna have those clubs for all of those students. So that was an excellent thing that came from the visit. Now these students who didn't have a safe space within their school will now have a safe space where they can be around like-minded people and discuss whatever issues they might be having within the school. So it was a wonderful, wonderful visit. Does anyone have any questions about our visit? All right, I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Before I move on, I wanted to answer the question answer the question that Alexandria Taylor put into the chat. Yes, we were aware of the incident that happened at Jefferson Middle School. I've been in contact with the associate superintendent. The principal has been put on administrative leave pending an investigation. They are doing an investigation at the moment. They have an interim outside principal that will be with the school. They're working with the families. They're also really investigating the whole incident. I will be back in contact with them next week. And so, yes, we have been in contact with the school, and I've talked with the superintendent on this. We also have been in contact with the school at La Cueva. Dr. Bannerman has been working with the associate superintendent. She's been working with the superintendent. She's been working with the school, the principal. And so on that same incident, so we have been working with the schools at La Cueva. We will be working. We've offered additional training for the staff as far when it comes around to anti-racism and how to address it in the schools. We will be rolling out, and that was one of my updates, we will be rolling out our Canvas-based training that is meeting of the moment, and it's talking about, it's addressing anti-racism, how to respond and how to respond and react to racist situations or into the schools. But it's a self-reflecting training that we're actually going to it should hit on Canvas we're looking at February 23rd. We'll also be going to Des Moines to do a pilot on the training, but this training will be available to all the schools. It's 6 modules right now. We're just launching the first 2 modules on that, but I did offer the associate superintendent for the staff to take this training. we are going, once we hire, we're in the process of hiring a professional learning coordinator. We'll be doing interviews on Friday for that position. And one thing for that person to come in the door is we're really going to look at training for our students, because I would say 80% of incidents that are happening in our schools are coming from our students. And so we really, really somehow need to develop a training that we can put into these schools that these students can, students would have to take. If they were involved in an incident, they would have to take this training. The student and the parent would have to take the training. Also just doing additional training for an assembly for our students, because it's needed. We're looking at the staff. We're really looking at this. We're looking at the staff. All school they're required to submit an anti-racism training plan that they have to do every year. Within the schools, they can also do the training that we're putting together. So every year they have to submit a plan. But what about our students? You know, there's nothing out there for our students. There's nothing out there for them to know the hurt that they're causing among each other. And so that would be the one, probably a primary goal for the professional learning coordinator when they come in, is looking at a training that we can present in our schools for our students. And so I hope I addressed the questions. I'm wondering if the district policies. Yes, they do. And actually APS, because all schools had to submit, and that's, I'll just lead me to my next point. All schools had to submit a anti-racism training plan that they put forth to their staff. And it's for all staff into the schools. And so we had to look at those trainings and approve the trainings. This year, they were able to pick their own trainings. Next year, we'll have trainings that they would have to implement into their schools. And so they do, and actually APS was one of the schools that had the better trainings for their staff. They not only just looked at one training, they had multiple trainings that they were going to be doing with their staff. And so that would be my job in following through to making sure these trainings are trickling down into these schools, and understand that, you know, all staff have to take these trainings, and they have to do it every year on a yearly basis. But yes, they did submit a plan. Their plan was in depth. They had several trainings that they were going to incorporate through their districts with APS. So yes, they did. Are there any other questions around the incidents that happened with Jefferson, La Cueva? But we are on it. Again, we're working with the schools. We would love to work with the community. And again, that's just that awareness that we're out here. We just, you know, we gotta get the act to work. And so we've got to really partner and work together in pushing this act. It's the first. It's new, it's the first. And so we just really got to get people conditioned to let us know what's happening in the schools. And then we just got to be diligent in working with these schools and making sure, stuff is getting taken care of. And they come up with a plan on keeping our babies safe. That's the big thing, is that no kid should have to go to school scared at all. And so all schools should be able to address these issues and make sure that all of our kids are safe. And that's our goal, as well, is to make sure that all of our babies, all of our kids are safe, and they feel safe in a school, and giving them an environment to learn. And so that's the goal that we have with us. And I hope I answered all the questions. So I'll move on, because I know everybody's ready for a break. And so I'll just move through what we have. Like we said, we have been doing a lot for the last 2 months. And so there's a lot to report on. One thing that we do need to talk about is the budget. So with the Education Act, we had the budget of $500,000, but it was not recurring money. And so come June 30th, there will be no money tied to the Black Education Act. And so what does that mean? It means a lot. There is money tied, there is money coming into PED that we could look at, that we're looking at putting into. We put together a budget of an operational budget of about $75,000 to help us get through next year. As far as like our salaries, they're looking at making those positions a perm position, because right now we're just a term position, but they are looking in putting our positions as a perm, which is great. I know there's stuff in the act that they have to have these positions, especially the liaison position. It's written in the act, so there's some stuff that they have to do. But as far as money, there's no money tied to the Black Education Act after June 30th. And so our ask is just, to get together to see what we can do as far as talking to legislation and seeing about getting recurring money. I know just this year, there was a jump in the Indian Education Act. They're putting about 15 million to the Indian Education Act. The Hispanic Education Act received 500,000. This is the first year that they actually had money to their act. And so they have about $500,000 put to the Hispanic Education Act, but again, it's not recurring money. So after FY22, there will be no money tied to the Hispanic Education Act. So I asked to the advisory council, is the ways to help. There's so much that we can do as a staff as far as lobbying. There's so much that we can do as contacting our legislators. So I know there's Senator Pope is out there. We have Representative Herndon. We have Representative Colbert, Padrell Colbert out there. There's other representatives out there just really contacting your legislators. There's the 60-day session is coming up, but we have to start working now. We have to get on everybody's radar now because the committees are going to be coming up this summer. But if we just really want money tied to this act, we just really have to get busy now. And so that might be another subcommittee on how are we going to look at funding for this act. We have talked as a staff as far as looking for funding opportunities, looking for federal grants. And so just trying to go outside of the state and look at federal grants. If you know of places that we can look into, if you know there's grants out there that we can submit for, please let us know. But we just, that's going to be our big push, because right now after June 30th, there is no money tied to the Black Education Act at all. And that's not going to stop us from doing our work. We're still going to do the work, but we just may not be able to do a lot of the things that we're planning on doing, like the history book. But if we can get a grant to write the New Mexico history book and the traveling to the schools, we're going to do as much traveling as we can before June 30th to hit the schools. So just keeping that out there on the radar. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat. So Hakeem, let's see, the respective district disciplines.
I'm happy to share. I just didn't want to interrupt Nicole.
No, go ahead. And I'm sorry, I'm a multitasker, but I'm not on technology. So I was like, go ahead.
No worries. I'm happy to share my last two comments related to the current topic we're discussing and then the previous topic. My only comment on the previous topic was just for me to have clarity that any discipline that's related to the incidents that we just discussed, Jefferson and can't remember the other school right now, that is discipline or punishment or firing happens at the district level. That's not under our authority, right? What we're able to do is swoop in afterwards. Someone calls the hotline or it's a news story, and we swoop in afterwards and we say, here is resource. And I said resource to repair, like when I was at the city, we tried to provide resources for Washington Middle School after their shooting. But so those resources are direct to service to families. You can bring in therapists, you can bring in counselors, we can train, we can do professional development with teachers, and we can, I think the most sustainable is to, yes, change the curriculum, make new textbooks part of the standards, move things from elective to required. Like that's long-term change, but in the wake of any incident, the best we can do, and I'm not saying it's bad, but the best we can do at that point is let the school handle the person who did the thing, and then we try to support the families who were impacted by this thing. Is that a correct understanding of our jurisdiction, if you will?
Yes, that's dead on, and that's why we had to bring out awareness so people would understand that, you know, we can do so much as public education department. There's only so much that we can do, and that's with the support. But as far as it comes down, like you were saying, with the disciplines, what they want to do with their schools, the schools, that's up to the schools. We don't have
Right.
any authority to come in and fire people or, you know, yes. So yes,
or your local authority, right? Because if it gets to the level of a hate crime, we would hope the local authorities would be involved. But yeah, that's even beyond the school if there's criminal questions involved. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood, and I think that is I'm on the advisory council and I've read the act, but I feel like that's kind of what we need folks to know. We need families to know that we are a resource to them. We need schools to know that, like, before you get in trouble, we are a resource to you. Once you get in trouble, we can't do nothing for you. I mean, we could come into your community and help out, but you've already done the wrong, right? And I feel like that, hopefully, in a way that we say to schools, because I heard you loud and clear earlier, that we don't want to, like, we're not the police, but we are the report card. Like, and we are tracking, and what we want to say to the schools who are underperforming is we can help you. You know, you got an F. That's real. You got an F on your relationship with your Black students and families, but we're here to help. And here are the things that can help. We can help you get your grade up, right? That's what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah.
And it also creates a paper trail and data. Without the data, sometimes people only look at data. So by calling the hotline, you're creating a paper trail. And I think that is super important to know.
Yeah.
I really.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to jump in. I want to say thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I was thinking that when you guys were talking about it, or when you guys were talking about the hotline, I was like, yeah, it's data all day. And that's why it's imperative to have folks aware of it, because we don't want to lose data. We don't want folks not reporting. You know, and I feel like that's dicey in how we message it. I think I think I'm on too many committees, but that's where the communications committee comes into play, because people won't report if they think it's punitive. Like, if they, like, you know, my mom worked at that school, so I don't want to say nothing. But like, how do we tell folks exactly what you just said, right? We can only do our work if you all let us know, you know, where things are happening, and that's the data, right?
Mm-hmm. And we're trying to come up with a system too. What we're trying to do. I think somebody just put on the chat too with the equity scorecard, but that's what we're trying to do with the schools as well. Is the complaints that are coming in, we're basically grading the schools on how they handle the situation. And so it's like, you know, it's like a green, yellow, red, and the schools are going to we'll have a grading system for these schools on how they're handling these situations. Because like you were saying, again, Hakeem, you know, we need to come in and help these schools and support these schools and be able to give them those tools that they can address incidents. So, you know, if something else happens in these schools, they have those tools to be able to address it properly. And so we're really diving into how to support the schools as much as that we can. Because like you were saying, you know, we can't go in and make them fire people. We can't go in them, you know, and go in there and tell them, you got to do this, this, and this. But we can go in there and provide them the tools they need to be able to address these incidents. And so we will have a grading system on the schools. So when people do ask, you know, that's it, we can let the school know, you know, you have an F right now in addressing incidents, and it's right here. And then when we do our reporting, we can show the schools that are in need of help. And also it makes the schools accountable. If they know that they're going to be on a grading system, they're going to be more accountable and more, you know, amped to help and to work on the situation instead of trying to sweep it under the rug. So we're going to try to do as much as we can with these schools, just kind of be diligent in showing that we're helping with the schools and supporting them, but you have to want the help as well. And you have to want to make that change. And that's what we're holding those schools to the fire is you have to make these changes. You have to protect our students.
If I can add, Nicole, I would think that that's really important to your point that you just made before I started running my mouth around how do that's what will move a legislator who maybe is not a fan. That will move a legislator who is like, who the ones who kind of fall on the trope that there's not a lot of Black students and it's an unreasonable idea to devote resources to a minority of the population. That's always what they kind of try to lean on. But if we're saying, if we're coming at it from that spirit, and that's where the messaging is important, right? That we are trying to help these schools do better. I think that's the nuance, and if we can use that language, and I'm happy to help with that as well. Now that I'm back in the private sector, like as we lobby those legislators, what language can we give them to justify it to the people in their districts that are like, why? And or that's not going to benefit my kid, right? Because it inevitably will. Last thing I'll add before I switch gears real quick is like the red, yellow, green, maybe red, black, and green, just because of who we are, though. But I mean, if we're going to have color coding, maybe we can get that Pan-African flag in there. The last thing I was thinking, yes, because if you get a black, that should be like the gold standard. Anyway, but I think that the last piece I put in the chat was around funding, and I spoke with Vicki last week, maybe week 4, because I was the state soccer team was gonna recognize me for Black History Month. They're kind, but when they did it, they were asking me like, okay, so the idea is to move folks to act, and so what do you want to say in this post we're gonna put up that gives folks an actionable thing to do? And they meant like, where can people donate money to a good cause? And so I called Vicki to say like, hey, is there a way for folks to get, like, I'm going to mention the Mexico Black Education Act. That's what I'm going to mention. That's the cool thing I'm connected to right now. I would love it if folks would support that. And she said exactly what you guys were saying. She's like, I don't know if there's a mechanism, philanthropic mechanism. So writing grants is one thing. The state can handle a grant, but can they handle personal donations? Is there a need for us to build some sort of foundation around this? I mean, to me, that's I think the question in front of us that we might want to talk about between now and June, as we're raising money. So.
Exactly, and it may have to go that route because it's just state is real hard with private donations, and PED is just a whole. I thought state was an animal, but PED is a whole nother animal, especially when it comes to funding and budget. And so it would be something to look into. I can find out as far as is the private donations with PED. If not, we could look into a foundation with the Black Education Act. And I know Alexandria asked, we did ask for money this legislation session, and it wasn't turned down. And so yes, we did have a request in there for money for the Black Education Act, but it was turned down. And so I just wanted to answer her question. Arlen, I know you've had your hand up.
Yes, I just want to talk to the two situations that we brought up earlier, and probably can just give more insight to at least what I know with APS and my position and how I work in APS. With those two situations, my office, equity and engagement, we're the ones that normally deal with those situations when we hear about them. And we get that information normally from community. So I found out about the Jefferson Middle School situation the same day in my meeting through community. Kathy McGill was one of the members that let me know about that. And then my office, we moved forward to try to figure out what was going on and try to do an investigation with getting insight from teachers, counselors, and other people to figure out what is going on with that incident of that day, but also previous incidents that we've received in the past. So knowing more of, in my experience in dealing with a lot of parents, especially parents in our community, the experience has been not knowing what information we have in APS and what resources they have, just in general, not just within APS, but even in the state, what's going on. Because when it comes down to, I know where we fall is not too much information on our ERS office where you actually can file a complaint. And while what Nicole said of like PED can't really take away a person's job, but they can help advocate with those parents. But actually that filing a complaint can't take away that person's job. So those are where that investigations and those processes go to where it leads to be able to see whether a principal needs to be on leave, whether a principal or staff member or faculty member or even a student needs to be removed or put as an assessment of a threat, and actually figuring out what ways that we can go about it, whether that is a restorative justice approach and more holistic approach, or that's something where it has to be pure punishment and making sure that we change the environment to be able to help the community. So that's been one of our efforts. The only sad part when it does come to that is just understanding like that's the capacity, and knowing APS is one of our biggest, it's the biggest district in our state and one of the biggest districts in the nation. So it does go into, at least for me in my capacity, that needing that support to try to support those families, because I could be juggling a couple of cases at a time and trying to support individual family members and knowing that they'll be able to have the Black Education Act and PED and people within PED to be able to support that long-term outside of them. I even work with Nicole Rogers in the city to be able to make sure that if we have a file going on in our EOS office, that they also know about their city resources with Nicole Rogers and can be able to file any other paperwork or a police report if it goes to that extent. But knowing that more and more people are looking for the resources to know where they can go, because a lot of people don't know where to go, and when they do go to places, the first thing that I would go to is like social media. And luckily that does be the place that I do catch it and try to see, what we can do with it. But I do think having that circular effort of being able to get it in the district, but also getting that support from PED is a good, helpful support, and knowing and being able to get that information out there. And actually to say, my office always do a African American Summit, and last year we did it around Juneteenth. So I think that would be a good effort in being able to put that information out there to community members, including the town hall that you already will have in Albuquerque.
Great. Thank you, Arlen. I'm just going to move through the rest of our, and then if you all have questions, just let me know. But I'm just going to move through the rest of our announcements. The training and discipline plans, all the schools had to turn in a training discipline plan by January 28th. 90% of the schools have. The schools that have not submitted anything, I'll be doing site visits with them and supporting them and getting their training plans turned in, and as well as their policy and discipline around racial aggression in their schools. And so just to make them accountable, because they had to have all these plans in by January 28th. So I will be doing site visits with the schools that have not turned in anything, but 90% of our schools have turned in a training plan and also have updated their policies and discipline, their policies and then their discipline plans as well. But they have to do that every year. As long as it doesn't change in their books, they just have to show us every year that those policies are in place and that they are doing the anti-racism training with their staff. So that has been almost completed. Devin and Simone, again, like they were saying, are working on the website. So hopefully we should get that up and running in a couple of weeks. I know now that the legislation session is over, they'll have more time dedicated to getting the website up for us. So we'll be under the Public Education Department, but we'll have our own link to the Black Education Act. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to go through this. We have presented to the superintendents and the charter school leaders. They have their meetings every week. We were in attendance with the meeting, so they are aware of the hotline. They are aware of Simone with the curriculum, and they are aware of the Black Education Act. And so we have had those meetings with the superintendents. Again, we're looking at doing site visits with the schools. And so we're getting out doing town halls with communities and site visits with the schools just to get that word out about the Black Education Act, and also to let them know of any support that they may need as far as training, as far as just support, what we can do on our end to help them address issues that happen in their schools or any of the trainings that they may need for their schools. Again, like I was saying, the campus-based training, we're doing Meaning of the Moments. Everett Hill was the one that put the training together. It's going to be 6 modules. What's nice about it, we have module 1 and 2 that's going to kick off next week. And then they're working on the rest of the modules. Once we get all 6 modules on campus training, any of teachers that take all 6 modules would be eligible for micro-credentialing. So that's going to be awesome that they can be able to take this training and get their micro-credentialing in this training. And so that's our goal We're also working with it's called a Long Talk, and they do in your face training around anti-racism training, and we're looking at putting that together. We hope to have the training we're looking at 250 teachers or administrators to put this on. And we're hoping to do this by the end of May before school is out. It's just, we're trying to do the contracts and getting them set up. So we'll also have that training opportunity for the schools. What we did was break down the staff as far as helping with the committees. And I know once we get into the committee reports, we can get more in depth into this, but I just wanted to give a brief update. So Simone would be, she'll be working with the professional curriculum committee and the family professional and curriculum committee and the family and community committee. And I think they combined professional and the curriculum, professional development curriculum. They combined that committee, and then she'll also be with the family and community. Devin is going to be over the hotline committee and the public relations, and that's with our youth. And then our new person that would come in, the professional learning coordinator, they would also be with the professional and curriculum committee and also with the data and policy. And so each staff will have some part with the committees. So to answer questions, to help bring back to our team in addressing issues that the advisory council or any needs that the advisory council have, any suggestions that we need to look to as far as the staff. And so I'll be a part of everybody, and just I'll be that liaison for everyone. I'll just be a part of all the committees, but you'll have a designated staff for each of the committees. And our last topic that we're working on, and I'll let Simone talk about that, is we're working on to grow our own teachers, because another part in the act is having more African-American teachers or administrators in our schools in New Mexico. And so I'll let Simone talk about that.
So we're looking for funding opportunities for this initiative as well. What we're wanting to do is to have teacher internships where we're literally growing our teachers over time. We want to look at HBCUs and even within local high schools at African-American students who are interested in education. A key problem I feel with education is student teaching and not getting paid when you student teach. You can't have another job, and that is a stickler for a lot of people, but especially for our African-American community. So we're looking at ways that we can help pay and fund a person of color who is interested in education as they go through their whole process of schooling, and then even through the student teaching part, and then hopefully partnering with schools to get assignments for the teachers, which we all know there's a teacher shortage anyway. So we are definitely looking for any funding opportunities or anything in the community that can help us with that initiative.
Sorry, again, I'm reading the chat. Yes, Brandy. Yes, we do. And so we do public notice. We'll do that 72 hours before our meetings, but we'll also put, again, when our website is up and running, we'll have the recordings of our meetings. We'll also have the dates of all of our meetings. We're just really waiting to get that website up and running. And so we'll have all of the information that anybody would need. It will be on that website. In the fellowship. And then also the legislation also passed in what PED is looking into is trying to do, putting more money into the teacher internships. And so they're looking at in PED, sorry, and I'm reading the chats. So that's another route that we can go, is getting those teachers into those programs that the public education department is putting forth in bringing in teachers into New Mexico. Yes, it is. It sure is, the teacher residency bill, yes. And so what we need to do on our end is really trying to get African-American teachers here and get them into the schools, or getting them into these programs that are gonna be put forward.
And if I may just jump in, I was
Uh-huh.
just gonna say, in our budget, just so everybody knows, is we got $5 million more for teacher prep affordability scholarships and 5 million for teacher loan repayment. And so I think that we also have to do maybe some cross marketing where we can get some flyers, some handouts, just any like social media, but also start distributing that information, to teachers in Black communities so that they can find out about, because a lot of times these programs are out there. We just don't do a good job of getting the word out. So I've really been trying to advocate to tell people like, in my world, a lot of times we tend to go through the districts or go through the unions. And I'm just like, those are the people who are already in the know. Like, how do we get this into like church bulletins or into restaurants, right? Like, so that people just see it in places where they're at and know that it exists enough, and like the website where they can go to get more information. So I would love to work on that too.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And that's what, and that's why we're trying to use the website as our tool in getting that information out. And so like you were saying, it's just the knowledge that our community needs. And so that's our job, to get that word out, to show them different programs that are coming up. The beauty is that we are under, we have you as far as representing the higher ed, we're under PED. So we have it first, we have that information firsthand. Our jobs is just getting that information out to everybody. And so those tools are with the social media, with our website, with our town halls, with everything that we can do, everything possible, working with the HBCUs, with the bridge program that we can look into. So really, we're gonna work hard in getting that information out into our community.
One other thing that we want to do at our agency, because we're recognizing that a lot of, our programs and professionals who are doing ethnic studies, who are doing different kinds of work for people of color and students of color, often don't know essentially like the funding cycle through the legislature, right? Like, when do you get involved? So we have people coming to us, like in the 11th hour, and our budget was literally set in October. So something that we're committing to this year, and we'll of course invite everybody to it, we want to do a workshop that explains the funding cycle and talks to people about what does it mean, to try and get into the higher ed budget, the PED budget, so on and so forth. And then also what is the bill cycle? How do you get somebody to sponsor a bill if you want to go that way? And knowing that different avenues politically, right, have different chances of being successful. That way, it's like we're in the know. And I keep seeing that, even when I was a faculty member, right, and a director of equity and diversity, I kept seeing all these other institutions getting RPSPs, getting money in different ways at the higher ed level. And I never knew the door in. I was like a mouse looking for a piece of cheese in a maze that was, building out in front of me. And so part of it is also having to demystify that system. And so we're gonna attempt it, right, this year to do a workshop like that very, very early on in the interim session as we go into the 60-day session.
Exactly. And so again, if I would love to put that information out on our website, and then I'd love to work with you as well on that, because like I said, we have to try all avenues in getting money tied to this Black Education Act, especially recurring funding.
Yep.
For the act.
Well, and I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I still don't understand, right? I have people explaining it to me who have been doing it for years, and I always think about that in terms of equity, right? Is if the people who have the privilege, right, who have kind of eked our way out into this place, and we still can't understand it, like, how can we expect people in community, right, to be able to have access to it? So for me, it's like, let's start making maps for people. This isn't our system. We didn't make it. I would have made it completely different. I think we all would have. But there's that sense that the least we can do is to start supporting each other with those maps. And maybe something I don't know. Like, I always call it a stone soup organizing. We all bring what we have to kind of clarify and create the opportunity for everybody.
Exactly. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Any other questions before we take a break with what we're doing? Is there anything that you would like to know? Yeah. That's good, Dr. Lopez. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to add, this is amazing work that I think could be in a digital repository for posterity, but also on YouTube, so that year after year, whoever's sitting in our seats can use that as a resource going forward across the state. So thank you, Dr. Trujillo, for, will that be a recorded session? What you were planning, is that going to be on Zoom?
We haven't gone quite that far. We had like the initial conversation, you know, spaghetti at the wall, like what can help with this, right? We really want to support people. And that this was one of the ideas that was generated there. So we'll definitely keep all of these, you know, great ideas in mind as we continue to plan.
Great. And I thank you, Alexandria. I sure will contact you when we're looking into the legislative funding. Are there any other questions with the staff? What's going on? Are there? Okay. So what we'll do is take a 10-minute break. So it is now 10:50. We'll come back at 11 o'clock.
Contact list in that shared drive for us to be able to access. So I'll be working with Devin and getting everybody access to that Google form. And I want everybody to kind of look at it, put something in there leading up to our next meeting where we can finally address it and even finalize some things that we agree on when it comes to our online etiquette, as well as our consensus model structure. Do we have any questions in regards to the what I just said? I know I probably was talking too fast. No. All right, thank you, Ms. Stephanie Mack. All right, well, I'll turn it over to Nicole before we get into our subcommittees.
Okay, before we get into our subcommittees, I do want to talk about with the advisory council. With the Black Education Act, we have the advisory council would uphold 23 members on this council. We've had 2 of the advisory council members to leave. We had one that was moving and we had another one that resigned from the position. And so we are in search of a community member that can serve on the advisory council. And we also are in search of someone that's in special education. I know that Dr. Monique had wanted to change roles. The only thing with the act is the person has to be teaching special ed. And so they have to be in the classroom as far as with the K through 12. That was the only rule. So we would love to have you in that role, but it would have to be a teacher that's teaching in special ed. And so those are the 2 vacancies that we have. If you have anybody in mind, please email me with the names, and so that I can interview them and talk with them and see their interests and what they have with the advisory council. We have such a good council right now. It's love to have people on there that are compatible with who we have already on the advisory council. So if you have any names, email those names to me and I'll reach out to them. If we can do that at least within 2 weeks, so I can get in touch with them by our next meeting time, and they can be able to be present in our March with our March meeting. And so that's the update on the advisory council. Also, we probably would have more members. Again, we are new to a webinar. We are in the process of purchasing our own license for the Black Education Act to have a webinar. And so again, because we're with state and it's with PED, it's a process. And so right now, I'd like to thank the Office of African American Affairs for letting us use their webinar today. And so that's probably why it was so difficult to log in. I think it was brought up to our attention that, it had the Office of African American Affairs, and then you had to sign in. And so that's what happened. But hopefully by March, we'll have that licensure for our own webinar, and it'll be a lot easier to log in. And then we'll also have the Zoom links ahead of time as well. But thank Devin, and thank you for the Office of African American Affairs in getting this up and running for us, so we would have something for community and for advisory council members. But with that, I can move over into the committees.
All right, and I'm sorry. So can the leaders of the curriculum committee, or do we have them here?
Mhm.
All right, well, you have your 30 minutes to be able to report out.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to ask if you can hear me. If not, I can.
Oh, no.
You can't hear me at all, or now you can? Okay. Okay. Hi, I'm Joseph Ulibarri, and for those who might have joined a little bit later, I am a charter school teacher, and that's my role as on this council as the charter school representative. I have been the only person on the curriculum committee, so but I wanted to tell you just some of the updates on. I was not on the first initial email list. Somehow my name got lost in the system, and so I wasn't really kept up to date with anything. So the first meeting I had was on January 21st with Dr. Nelson, when Dr. Nelson was on the committee. That was the only meeting, and then, as many of you know, it was that same weekend that Dr. Nelson had left the council, which means I was the sole person on that committee. After discussing with Dr. Nelson, I came up with some ideas and some other things that were just on my mind, and then met with Simone Van once I got information from her on February 8th, and I discussed this same information with Simone. So the first this is in a way, these are chronological things that are prioritized lists or dependencies of things that need to be in some of our views, what needs to be done before we get to the next level. Just some of the first that we talked about. Defining curriculum, we need to establish a philosophical framework for an inclusive curriculum. Reevaluate and reconstruct, as Dr. Nelson's words, reconstruct the tricultural narrative of New Mexico. You know, it's beyond Hispanic, white, and Native American, obviously. We need to identify curricular areas that are lacking the Black perspective, establish an anti-racist framework for the curriculum. And among this, or within this, we need to define anti-racism. And when we talk about professional development later, what does that mean for teachers? What does that mean for students? I was thinking about differentiating standardized ready-made curriculum versus resources. So that standardized curriculum, or things like textbooks and adopted curricula that we have to use, and also like digital software, gamified curriculum, but also differentiate that versus adaptive resources, things like videos, articles, supplementary texts, apps that teachers will individually choose to bring into the classroom. Next on that list is, I discussed with Simone about establishing a statewide curricular team with leaders in each subject. These leaders are experts in their subject area, and also they are leaders who are known to be inclusive, who have experience in creating that inclusive curriculum. One of the reasons why I wanted to be on this team is I am working a lot in curriculum and examination of curriculum, and especially finding areas where we can, that are lacking that perspective of marginalized communities, and how can we fix those curricula. So we would need people like elementary specialists, special education, social studies, math, science, language arts, performing arts like music, drama, and dance, visual arts, physical education, career and technical education. And with that team, we should establish curricular needs in New Mexico as related to the Black Education Act, evaluate currently adopted curricula in each of those areas. And one of the questions that came up is, does there exists an evaluative tool to gauge the level of inclusion for a curriculum? Yes, and there are. I put a link on our, and I gave this link to Simone. There's something called the Care Review Tool. Obviously, though, I think we need to do more research and to make sure that these tools are coming from scholarly based sources. And after we evaluate that, create a database of recommended curricula, which are both standardized and adaptive resources. In some of the early research, I noticed that the state of Maine offers a database for teachers to go to. We could look at that. I also, in my research, have found that there is an anti-racist school, a charter school in Seattle, Washington. And it is one of my next steps is to email that school, get in contact with them and see if there are resources they've used. We need to also research what teachers are already doing throughout the state. So this is an initiative. Maybe we could work with the data team or something like that. Seeing what initiatives are currently going on with either teacher curriculum in districts. And once we need to add to that database as we get new information, we need to evaluate the quality of the curricular items on that database. And my question was, could this be part of the summer review of instructional materials? So I know social studies and arts review is this summer. And make official recommendations for curricular adoption. We were talking about that book earlier, or also just curricular recommendations. Like I said, all those adaptive resources. I also found, of course, there are numerous colleges that have databases, like Excel sheets. Like these are narratives, these are textbooks, things like that. And there's whole databases that we can draw from or evaluate. And in the end, we're going to have to train teachers utilizing these resources effectively. Not only just saying these are resources, but how do we implement them in curriculum? Other things that I got just from today, that I've written on this, is I noted that people were talking about build capacity for ethnic studies within the curriculum. And so I think the curriculum team needs to take a look at that. How do we make recommendations? And another big thing is, how can we include student voices? Students should be, they're already at the heart of our curriculum, but how can they tell us what they want in their curriculum? Whether that's a data thing where we are surveying students. I'm a researcher too. I'm in a doctoral program, and those are things I identify as are necessary. You need that data in order to know, and we want the students to have voice in that. And then I'll talk more on professional development later. I did share with Simone that spreadsheet, I think, of a university that created this resource. I did share the state of Maine, their data or their database. But there's the Bridgewater University, I think, that has a database and things like that. Oh, and I will talk about this other item in the professional development. I believe that's what ends my report.
All right, thank you, Joseph. Could we have the data and policy team to be able to report?
Thank you so much. I was just going to add that I put in the chat an opportunity for any high school teachers who want to do a free.
I think you muted
workshop.
Dr. Nancy Lopez.
I am muted.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay.
Are people able to hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you.
Great. So I put in the chat an opportunity for a free virtual workshop for high school teachers that's being sponsored by the Sociologists for Women in Society. It's on Saturday from 9 to 4. And it's really about intersectionality. And this is why I want to build on the last report on curriculum. If we think about our guiding framework for understanding the Black experience, how valuable is an intersectional lens, right? How would that help us understand the experiences of, let's say, I mentioned first gen, I mentioned Black Latinos, I mentioned immigrant Latinos, African Americans, students that are transgender, et cetera. So I think that's a wonderful way to connect the work of the curriculum and the data and policy, where I co-chair with Dr. Patricia Trujillo. So very briefly, the main things that we've done is meet, and we also didn't really know who else was on the committee until very recently. And some of the issues that we've been talking about since our first meeting was the urgency of having a data infrastructure that captures parental educational attainment as a data point for equity. And we could be the first in the country to do that. And it could set a model for how we distribute resources and advance systems level change. The other item we already talked about, which was the urgency of implementing a statewide requirement in ethnic studies that would include Africana studies, Chicano studies, Native American studies, et cetera, not only in K-12, but also higher ed. And this was one of the major consensus items and recommendations from the governor's, New Mexico Governor's Racial Justice Council Education Subcommittee that I co-chaired with Dr. Kiran Katira and so many others. The other is a hiring preferred criteria that we implemented at the University of New Mexico in 2014 when I co-chaired the Diversity Council, and that says that any job ad for faculty would say demonstrated commitment to equity and inclusion. Think about the system level change that could happen, and that could happen through executive order. And then finally, I think one of the other major things that we would like to see happen is making sure that this data is not simply used for reporting, but it actually does impact who's getting admitted into our programs of higher ed, whether or not they're doctoral programs, et cetera. So I'm sitting on this committee as a representative of higher ed, but actually my colega, la doctora Patricia Trujillo, is doing the same. So I don't know if you want to share some of our meeting conversations.
Sure. One of the things I want to put on people's radar is pretty heady. It's not very sexy, but it's really important, is that the higher ed department is the lead agency for something called the New Mexico Longitudinal Data System. Publicly, it's going to be known as RISE New Mexico. I'll put the website in the chat here in a minute. But what that is it's an effort between 4 lead agencies, or we're the lead agency, but 4 agencies. So it's ECECD, Early Childhood, PED, HED, and DWS, which is Workforce Solutions. And what we're going to do is create something called a data lake. And we're taking the data from each of those, from each of the participating agencies and organizations, and essentially going to be able to create a tool that will help us to do different kinds of research that Dr. Lopez was talking about, the different kinds of research, and hopefully make it more robust. But right now, one of the things that, in terms of people getting involved, is we're turning a corner from like a lot of the really technical groundwork, and we're going to start working with our vendor Google to actually create this data system. Unfortunately, we didn't get our full appropriation through the legislative system, but we got $4.25 million to get us through this year. And then we're going to be looking for also federal funding to help support it. And in doing this, what we're hoping is we're going to create this really robust data for each student in the state of New Mexico to make sure that we're obviously able to use data in that meaningful way, put it to work to make better decisions systemically, especially for the most vulnerable students in our system. So I just wanted to connect that to what Dr. Lopez was saying, because we've talked about that a lot. The other thing that we're working on is creating a, I'm sorry, I'm like out of words for the week. It was such a long week, but essentially like a research design team. And we're going to be looking for people to be a part of that. Because we have a lot of really wonderful, brilliant technicians working on the actual coding and building of the system. But then we really need the folks who are going to help us be, design the way we look at the data and the way we design research questions around it. So that's something that's really exciting that's happening statewide. If you want to take a look at systems like this, other longitudinal data systems that are already in place that are doing this amazing work, take a look at the state of Kentucky and take a look at the state of Hawaii. And they have really great exemplars that are really our models for what we're going to be doing with this system. And other than that, I think that Dr. Lopez and I would just like to welcome anybody else who's interested in geeking out on the numbers and the design of research regarding the Black Education Act to our committee. We meet pretty regularly and have really good conversations. So we'd love to welcome you to the group.
And I'll just repeat again that this Tuesday at noon, we'll have a Zoom meeting that's organized by the Institute for the Study of Race and Social Justice at the University of New Mexico. You can just go to race.unm.edu and look at events, but I also posted it in the chat and I'll do it again. And it's Dr. Gwen Warnament who will be speaking on the revisions to the K-12 social studies standards in New Mexico. I understand that there have been some changes, it was approved, but we would be very interested in having all of us participate and ask questions like, what kind of social studies and pedagogy education do all New Mexico K-12 students need against the backdrop of efforts to restrict curriculum on race and social justice? How can we protect teachers who engage their students in critical thinking about the history, right, and the contemporary dynamics of racism and other intersectional oppressions in our struggle for liberation? And then 10 years from now, how would we know that we've been successful in creating rigorous social studies standards and cultivating lifelong learning and success in K-12 in New Mexico and beyond? We really could be a model for the nation, and we're hoping that you can join us. I will put that agenda in the chat, and you don't have to register, you can just click on the Zoom link.
Thank you for that, Dr. Lopez. Can we get the Family and Engagement Committee, Dr. Monique and Romulus Charles? I think you're muted, Dr. Monique. Or it's hard to hear you.
Let's see. Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes.
All right, so Romulus and I are co-chairing the family committee. We've met about 2 times, and so we've looked over the initiatives and spoke about ideas. And so we're looking at sending out a needs assessment across New Mexico to target Black families to see what specifically needs they have regarding resources, supports, and schools. So far we've kind of have a rough draft so far of the needs assessment. We have about 5 questions. And so we're going to meet to target what demographic questions we would like to target on that needs assessment, and then send it out for critique and feedback. And we're looking at launching it in March so we can get some data hopefully. And we're specifically going to look at targeting the Black churches because just knowing, sending it out through the schools, we're not sure if we're going to get that much of a feedback. So we'd like to target really the communities where we can get the most response rate. So we're going to try to see if we could target the Black churches within New Mexico. So that's where we're at currently so far. Romulus, do you have anything to add?
No, that pretty much sums it up. And the purpose of this is just to kind of see where, our Black families are when it comes to the engagement from their schools or districts and what they would like to see in that regard. And we can definitely push out those questions to you guys as soon as we get those finalized. We're looking to meet here within the next week or so to get and also to roll out a timeline as far as, you know, sending those out in March, when we are going to receive those, and then what implications from those results moving forward that we can assess. And of course, the other committees, I feel like there's a lot of overlap with our committees when it comes to data and the curriculum and things like that. So, you know, what else we can do to work together to kind of increase the engagement side of things and give these families and parents something to chew on moving forward.
Thank you with that. And I definitely have I'm gonna put the link when I do it. I'll put it in the chat to a needs assessment that we did in APS with our African-American students. And that could be helpful with some of the data that we have in regards to APS and the groups that you're talking about.
Yeah, that would be super helpful. One of our ideas as well was to, I think we kind of, Monique and I kind of alluded to it, but every region in New Mexico has different needs based on the, you know, their specific school districts around the state. So yeah, the one that APS produced would be super helpful in helping guide that.
Most definitely. So based off the agenda, I also see at this time we would have a break. Do we want to take that 15 minutes or do we want to continue on?
I was wondering if we continue on, then we're almost done. I know the advisory councils here are hungry here. So, but by the time I order pizza, we'll probably be done. And so I think if we just move forward, that way we can get out early and then everybody can have their lunch, and we wouldn't have to reconvene. So that's my suggestion, is just to go ahead and move forward because we're almost done.
I'm with it.
Consensus. Okay. Okay, great.
All right, so then we'll move into the hotline response committee with Devin and other committee members.
Yes, and me and Dr. Mack were going to meet in January, end of January, just to kind of touch base on the hotline. And so based on those meetings, a lot of things that we talked about in terms of what's available for the hotline. So being able to touch base with the hotline and report an incident via phone with the 833 number. And I'll make sure I get that information to you all in the meeting today, but being able to reach out, either phone call or text, also the email online incident report. Another thing that's in the works is being able to create a training for the community so they can understand, community members can understand how to navigate the hotline and how to use it as an advocacy tool and a resource. Again, we're looking at doing marketing efforts. I know with additional information from the Black Education Act, we've got it sent out to the superintendents. We've also got information sent out to teacher leaders in New Mexico, as well as to all the teachers within K through 12. I know we're looking at doing a podcast as well as working with different community organizations to get the information out. And so the biggest thing is just really providing visibility to the hotline and making sure that wherever we can, posting the information so that students, families, community members, and teachers are able to access the hotline and report in. Again, depending on the types of calls and incidents that are coming will depend on the different stakeholders and partners within the public education department that we reach out to. One of the things I also have available for the advisory council is a licensure report. And so if there are any issues with teachers that happen within the schools, you can file a licensure report to start a process to look at investigations and figure out what the state can do in order to observe the licensure, and they'll have their own investigations. And so I'll have that information available to the council as well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now Professional Development Committee. That would be me again. Hold on.
Test. Test. I think it's working. Okay. My computer decides when it wants to work and when I'm not really doing anything. It's just, I don't know. Okay. I have been the only one on the Professional Development Committee. I wasn't really the one to, anyway, there's been a lot of changes. So Simone came to me and said, hey, can we put these two committees together? So the committee unanimously voted to, to put the two committees together, the curriculum and professional development. It was great unanimous consensus vote. So, because the curriculum and a lot of that overlaps with professional development, most of what you heard during curriculum applies to professional development. Just a couple things that I heard from you today that I could add to this. I heard that as a professional development, we need to help schools develop plans. Like I heard that, we're the report card, not the police. How can we follow up with first of all, how do we train them in order to know what this Education Act means for them, anti-racism, what that means for them, and then how can we support them if there is there are instances. So that needs to be part of our professional development plan. Something came up as a member as a on the Equity Council for my own school. We need to define racial aggression. Those terms are, they can be conceived in so many different ways. Now, what does racial mean, first of all, and then aggression on top of that? There were even some parent questions about that as well. And then there was, for professional development, I'm glad to hear about that long talk, because just as a teacher myself, a lot of these web-based professional development don't tend to be of high quality, at least, and we talked about in our last meeting as well. They either don't have high quality, and they also, when a teacher's watching these, they may not be completely tuned in to that. They're busy enough as well. So I do want to advocate for any kind of in-person professional development that we can, and whether that's, I mean, it's already that long talk that you're talking about, but even if we took look at those, the curriculum leaders, so going back to that curriculum piece, if we look at the state leaders of each area, special education, elementary, and all of the different subjects, if they could be, even if we had a specialist who was training those teachers to do the professional development, something along those lines, I like that in person better. And of course, I did want to add to that curriculum as well. Dr. Lopez, you said address the intersectionality. I think you're putting that in there as well. We need to think about that. Not only in curriculum, but I spoke of this even for teachers and addressing professional development. If we're wanting to raise visibility and have more Black teachers and things like that, I think intersectionality can be talked with as well with staff members. They have multiple identities and other issues like that too. So we need more members, obviously. So I know that there's a call for more members. I still would say that we do need to meet twice a month at least for each committee. That would be my suggestion. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially just because we've had so many changes in the past months.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Arlen, I just wanted to let Joseph know and let the advisory committee know. The meeting among the ones that's on the Canvas-based training, it is another in your face, a self-reflection type training for our teachers. So that's what's going to be nice. We also took actual stories that have happened in the schools, and it's kind of like, what would you do type that the teachers would have to respond to, but these are actual stories that are happening in the schools. So it's a real good self-reflection. It's a real good tool that they're going to be using with this training as well. So it's a good training.
Then I would add to that too. I recognize that we are hiring a professional learning expert, which is going to make a completely put a momentum on this. So I look forward to working with that person.
Thank you, Nicole, for that update and giving us more insight on where we're going. And I'll definitely be participating in both those committees because both the curriculum and the professional development moving forward as well. Lastly is our public relations, and that was more of our student led group. And I don't know if we have the students in here at the moment.
So none of the I will be working with that committee, and so some of the biggest things is really being strategic in our outreach and making sure that we're intentional about engaging the community on what the Black Education Act is doing. I have sent a little bit of collateral information in the chat, including information about the hotline as well as the Black Education Act. And so as you continue to reach out and connect with individuals within your schools and the community, please utilize these resources to help get the information out and just make people aware of what the Black Education Act is and what we do. One of the things I'll do is work with the students in the committee next week to touch base and work on how we can continue to engage the community and really just make sure that we're making everybody aware of the different things that we're doing with the Black Education Act.
Arlen, can I think that's the last of your committee,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to I know some of the committees, there's some committees that have more members than other committees, but for those that have not signed up for a subcommittee, if you could just email me with subcommittee that you would like to participate. I just wanted to give a brief run through of, so for the data and policy, we have Dr. Nancy Lopez, Dr. Patricia Trujillo, Hakeem Bellamy, Dr. Robert Sims, and Sandra Aaron. For curriculum, we have Joseph Ulibetti, and he's also the only one on for professional development. So we do need members for the curriculum and professional development. For the family and community engagement, we have Dr. Monique, we have Dr. Sims, we have Patricia Groovy, and Romulus Charles. And then for the community hotline response, we have Dr. Stephanie and Sandra Aaron. And then for the public relations, it's student-led was Camera and Tamaya. So we do need more members on most of the committees, especially with the curriculum and professional development. If you can send me an email, I can put you on those committees. Also, if everyone can just, for the team leads on the committees, if you all can just send me the times that you're meeting. And so that way our team, the staff team, knows those times, and then they can participate in those meetings with the subcommittees, if you can just let us know. And then also, if everyone can send me your email address, that would be awesome. Just shoot me an email. I just want to make sure that I have all the right email addresses, especially for Devin, as we're putting together the Google Docs, to make sure everybody is included and we're not leaving anybody out, especially when we do the newsletter. So we can just have one main list of email addresses. And then also send me the email address, because I know I have, some of you have 2 email addresses, which one that your primary one that you would like information to be sent to. And that's all I didn't for the committees, and I had other announcements, but I'm sorry, Arlen, I didn't mean to take over your meeting. That's what. I'm like, okay. Okay, yes. Well, I'm on a roll here.
For some reason to come back on. Oh, now I'm on. Okay. Um, so to clarify, in order for somebody to sign up for a new committee, you want us to email you and you'll get in touch with committee leaders, or how's that? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, for the committee, I was reading too.
Oh.
So I apologize. So for the, you're saying for the committee,
Subcommittee.
yeah, for the subcommittee.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then you will contact the leaders of each committee?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'll do, yeah.
Mhm.
We're having a hard time hearing you because I think you're muted on your Zoom.
You were muted during that time, so.
I'm sorry, and that's because Joseph and I are right here talking, so we're having a conversation. Yes, if everybody can just email me, if you want to be part of the committee, just let me know. And so if you can email me letting me know, and then I'll send your email and your information to the leaders of those subcommittees, and then those leaders will be responsible in contacting you with their meeting times and dates. But we also like the meeting times and dates so we can put them on our website, that people will know when those meetings are taking place, that we'll put on there as well. And I just want to make sure. Okay, so they responded to that one. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, and I'll have to get in touch with, let's see, Leroy. Okay, I'm gonna reach out to you after the meeting, or on Monday. I'll reach out to you as well, Leroy. Let's see, my next announcement. Thank you all for being patient with us with the Black Education Act. This is like, it's brand new. The staff is brand new. Myself and Devin are brand new to the educational system. So learning all the acronyms, learning the way PED flows is just, that's been a challenge on its own. So I wanna thank you all for being patient. I'm sorry about January with the holiday coming up with Martin Luther King, and I understand this is a holiday as well. So thank you everyone for coming, for attending the meeting today. But yes, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're still learning. We're moving fast. We're moving really, really quickly. But in the process, we're learning by fire. And so again, thank you for being patient with us with the webinar and bringing this all together with all the really with everything that we're putting forth into these schools. We're moving, we're shaking and moving. But again, if you can just be patient on just the flow of how the meetings are flowing, how everything is going, we're getting there. We are getting there, and we have a fierce leader that pushes us and makes sure that everything is done right. Dr. Batterman has been great and supportive in getting this Black Education Act going. She had the framework, and we're just filling in, we're just really painting that picture. And so I really commend her on the work that she started in getting this act going. Like I said, we're just taking that baton and moving on. So again, just give us a couple more months, and then we'll be there. So we're learning by fire. Our next meeting will be March 19th. If everybody is good, Dr. Alexandria Boyd, she has offered her school that we can host the meetings here. If you all want to host the meeting in your town, just let me know, because we love to travel. So so please let us know if you like to host a meeting in your town. If this is a good spot for Albuquerque, because a lot of people are from Albuquerque, this is a spot that we can continue to host the meetings. if there's somewhere else in Albuquerque that you'd like to host a meeting, please let us know. For now, we'll just keep it on Zoom because we do have other people in other areas of New Mexico. So we will keep it on Zoom and we will keep it on the webinar. But our next meeting will be March 19th from 9 to 2. I hope this time still works for everyone in this week. So again, a consensus for now, is this time working for everybody? If I can just get a consensus. Okay, yes. Make sure Dr. Means is included. Okay, Romulus said, CNF camp is available for us to meet as well. Great. Okay, that'll give us good time. That would be awesome for an alternative, especially this week because Dr. Boyd had to leave on an emergency. And so, but she still gave us access to her school. So that was great. Thank you, Romulus. I think those are all the announcements that I have. Are there any other announcements? Okay, so we can go to Espanola too. Perfect. Okay, I think if there is no other announcements, I don't think, I was trying to think. We don't have anything coming up besides we'll be going to Des Moines. I'll be doing a training at the CNI conference for the teachers, talking about the Canvas-based training that we have forth with the Black Education Act. Oh, we'll be doing charter school site visits. That's what, yes. We're teaming up with the charter school division and we're going to do site visits with them and talk about the Black Education Act as well. So we're doing site visits with them. I think that's all the announcements. I guess I just don't want to let you all go, but I will because I know everybody is hungry.
No, I actually I got one. I do have an announcement of something that we are doing. I am hosting a creative contest through APS right now, called the Kuumba Creative Contest, and it is a contest centering most of our students' art and creativity into their personal identities. We are doing awards for three awards per grade. So when it comes down to elementary, it'll be three winners, three winners in middle school and three in high school. Some they will get certificates with it, as well as being able to put their works on our APS websites and other sites that we have to be able to promote. And it is woven into creative writing, arts, whether that's sculpting or painting, and media. So that can be content creation or dance or other forms of media. And that ends the 28th. So we will be, it will close on the 28th, and all judges will be judging materials, and we'll be announcing winners in the second week of March. And that's all I have on my end. Black History Month.
And I think Hakeem just put an announcement for later today. He put it in chat. Oh, hi, Hakeem.
Hey, just so you guys can see me before we go, we just finished game number 1. But what I put in the chat was I did a little thing for I used to work for New Mexico PBS. I used to host the Chorus program. It's something I had to step away from during my years at the city because of conflict of interest, because we also partner with them on other projects fiscally. But they did invite me to say a few words around the legacy of MLK. So that'll air today at 4 p.m. if anyone's around, after which it'll be available on demand on YouTube. And that's channel 5.1 for you Comcast cable subscribers.
And I think that's, Dr. Lopez.
Just a wonderful announcement that on Tuesday here at the University of New Mexico, we will be voting on the A88 form that will officially create Africana Studies as a full-fledged department, not a program, in over 5 decades. So, and as you know, Dr. Kirsten Buick, my colega who started with me here 20 years ago, will be the inaugural chair of that department, of the official department. Obviously, there have been so many that have served in that capacity. So it's a public meeting. If anyone's interested, you could just Google Faculty Senate curriculum. I'm sorry, a Faculty Senate meeting on the 22nd. It's a Tuesday at 3. And there's numerous other activities that are going on if you go on the website for Black History Month.
Great. And then are there, and I know there's a America Promise is going to be shown Friday, next Friday on the 25th at the African American Performing Arts Center. The Martin Luther King Commission is putting that together, and they're going to have a youth panel to talk about the film. And it's a good film. I saw the first one, and so these are the kids from the first one, all grown up now. And so if you have time that Friday to come out, and I think, Arlen, I think you're facilitating, correct? Yeah, exactly. So it's a good film to come out, and that'll be Friday the 25th at the African American Performing Arts Center. It's 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, that it's starting. Are there any other announcements? Okay, well, thank you for coming out this Saturday morning. It was early. I had to wake up there in the morning. I meant to stretch and have everybody stretch and just put a smile on and be ready to get some work done. But thank you again. It was a pleasure seeing everyone. We'll see you in March. And again, if you could just send me your email address, send me the times that you're meeting for your subcommittees, that would help. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you. Is there anything else, anybody? Okay, it's like, thanks.